Francesca Hong, yet another major Democratic candidate who's all in on abolishing the police, and is running for governor of Wisconsin, says, I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons, because we all see the humanity in one another, and then we know nobody's disposable.
What's your response to that?
Welcome back to Political Crossfire. Today, Bill Maher is attacking Wisconsin gubernatorial candidate Francesca Hong over comments she made about prisons policing and democratic socialism. But when Hong appeared with Kaitlan Collins, she pushed back, arguing that an aspirational vision of a safer society is not the same as proposing the immediate abolition of prisons or police. Before we begin, subscribe to Political Crossfire and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our latest political debates and analysis. Let's get into it.
We are less than 24 hours away from the polls closing in one of the biggest Senate primary races ahead of this November's midterm elections. Across Michigan, tonight, the challengers in the state's Democratic Senate primary made their closing pitches to voters. Congresswoman Haley Stevens rallied in Grand Rapids, selling herself as the better choice to take on the Republican Mike Rogers come November. Meanwhile, her progressive challenger, Abdul El-Sayed, closed his campaign out in Detroit as he is looking to take on Democratic Party leaders in Washington.
There is a reason why Republicans are already spending thousands and thousands of dollars meddling in this primary, trying to maybe get their preferred candidate. Look, when it comes to Michigan, I run through anyone and anything to stand up for us.
This movement of ours has proven that it can come through $80 million of spending in lies because we're willing to hold with us the truth. The work is not over. We don't know what the votes will say. Although I feel pretty good about it.
Now, that race is not the only one that could define the Democratic Party's direction heading into this November, but also into 2028. There was a big shakeup last week in Wisconsin that has highlighted progressive momentum in the governor's race there. The former Lieutenant Governor, Mandela Barnes, became the second Democratic candidate to drop out within a span of just 2 weeks. Without naming the Democratic Socialist who is leading in those primary polls, Barnes suggested that person would likely become the party's nominee. And my source tonight is that candidate, the Democratic Socialist, Francesca Hong. And thank you for being here. When it comes to Michigan, you have not endorsed in that race. Abdul El-Sayed said he's not a Democratic Socialist. He's obviously the progressive in that race. Do you want him to win tomorrow night?
I think that Dr. Zayed represents the values of voters all across Michigan, especially when it comes to lowering healthcare costs and ensuring that people are having more money in their pockets. And so for me, seeing that momentum and his movement is incredibly encouraging, and I think his campaign has earned that excitement.
If Haley Stevens beats him tomorrow, what do you think that says about the argument that moderate Democrats are better poised to beat Republicans in November?
I think that a spirited primary is incredibly healthy for democracy, and if Haley Stevens were to win, that means that the voters came out to support their candidate. I mean, we want to make sure here in Wisconsin that this is an election that voters decide. But Wisconsin is unique. We have Ron Johnson and Tammy Baldwin. It's pretty hard to measure and understand where our voters are. But that's fortunately, we've held over 350 events, have knocked over 100,000 doors, and have a great understanding of what voters care about. And that's permanent affordability in a Wisconsin government that cares for everyone.
Well, I mean, I think that's an interesting point because as we've been watching, this trend from a political perspective, yes, a lot of Democratic Socialists have been winning in recent weeks and months in New York and Colorado. Your race is different. You're not running in deep blue turf. It is a true political battleground in Wisconsin. When voters might go to vote next weekend and look at this and say, well, the current governor hasn't endorsed you. He's endorsing the Democrat who's running against you. What's your argument for why voters should back you if the sitting governor in your party is not backing you?
He also didn't support his lieutenant governor in this term or his former lieutenant governor. I think that Governor Evers has every right to decide to put the thumb on the scale. But I'd like to remind folks that this election belongs to the voters, and the candidates have to earn their vote, put in the work. Wisconsinites work hard. They work harder than most folks all across this country, and they deserve a candidate who is working just as hard to make sure that they can earn their vote. And talking about things they care about, a moratorium on AI data centers, taxing the ultra-wealthy, fully funding our schools, and free childcare. It's been an honor of my life to be able to run for governor, and I think that our campaign is showing that Wisconsinites are coming together over the issues and our shared values of care and hard work.
In terms of Democratic Socialist, Bill Maher had some harsh words for your movement that you were part of, and that you pay dues in your state. I want you to listen to what he had to say about what he believes is happening inside the Democratic Party.
Yes, my vote is in play. I'm not voting for anyone who thinks the wrong side won the Cold War or cheers for the Intifada like it's the World Cup. It's so ironic from the people who obsess about colonization. You know what's being colonized now? The Democratic Party. Francesca Hong, yet another major Democratic candidate who's all in on abolishing the police and is running for governor of Wisconsin, says, I think that my perfect world would be a world without prisons because we all see the humanity in one another and then we know nobody's disposable. Well, murder victims are.
What's your response to that?
No, the governor cannot defund the police, and I won't defund the police. And I'm not interested in abolishing prisons. What I am interested in is being serious about safety. And that means ensuring that law enforcement has the training that they need and that we're holding law enforcement that break the law accountable. What also means that we have to be tough on causes if we're going to be tough on crime and investing in the things that we know prevent crime, like funding schools, great out-of-school programs, making sure that we have mental health resources and addiction resources, good housing and healthier healthcare. So, and it's, those photos that he put up, I think he had to, because the real story is when you look at our campaign events and the people who are organizing repair cafes and coming together at bowling alleys and first-time voters talking to people who may have not have voted in the last 6 years, there is an immense amount of joy and creativity and people feeling excited to be engaged in politics. That's what this campaign is about. And we're talking about the issues that they care about. And I think it's important that we help voters feel like they belong before we make them believe in something. And that's what's been really great about running a grassroots movement.
You said you don't support abolishing prisons. Do you still hold the view that you laid out in May, which was that in a perfect world, it would be a world without prisons?
I think talking about what may be aspirational and then understanding the role of the governor, what they can and cannot do, and what is implementable right now. These are different conversations. If we're going to be serious about public safety and ensure that everyone's human right to feel safe is what we are trying to do, we have to make sure that the system right now that is incarcerating more Black and brown men than any other state in the country right now, where we have our schools are having to go to referenda just to try to figure out if they can keep the lights on, making sure that we are delivering solutions, not focusing on labels or slogans, because governing ultimately is about making sure that we're working with our partners in communities on the issues that they care about.
Well, and obviously Tom Tiffany, who, if you win the primary, will be the Republican that you're facing, he keeps bringing up your past positions, what you've said. He said the facts are louder than campaign spin was his comment earlier. You have said you do not support the full platform of the national DSA and that you are not endorsed by DSA National. Which parts of the Democratic Socialist platform do you not support?
I think looking at where the Senate is right now, abolishing the Senate when there's an opportunity for us to take that Democratic majority is not practical. So I think that Democratic socialism, to me, is ultimately rooted in care and making sure that people have their needs met. It's about democracy, fairness, and human rights. I am one of the proudest Packers fans, our publicly owned NFL team. I think when I talk about potholes and making sure people pay their fair share of taxes so that we're able to fix the roads, invest in rural communities, and have fire and EMS services that are available regardless of where you live in Wisconsin. These are the things that I'm talking about, issues that voters care about. Tom Tiffany is having to go back to a lot of my old tweets because his actions and his resume, what he's done is defunded healthcare, ripped food share away from our children, supported a national abortion ban. And last time I checked, he still hasn't said who won the 2020 election. Being an election denier is an automatic disqualifier. So when you are the weakest candidate for the Republicans to put forth, it's likely that you're going to have to attack previous tweets of a candidate right now that's building a movement.
So you do support the Senate, the Supreme Court, and prisons, the existence of prisons.
Yes, I support all those things right now that are helping to ensure that there is public safety. But I do believe right now in our Supreme Court that we should be working to expand the court.
What this exchange exposed was the difference between describing an ideal society and outlining a policy that could realistically be implemented today. Bill Maher presented Francesca Hong's comments as proof that democratic socialists want to eliminate prisons and ignore violent crime. But Hong's actual response was far more practical. She said she would not defund the police. She said she was not campaigning to abolish prisons. And she argued that genuine public safety requires more than punishment after a crime has already happened. It also means investing in schools, mental health treatment, addiction services, housing, healthcare, and programs that reduce the conditions that often contribute to crime in the first place. That distinction matters. Saying that a perfect world would have no prisons does not mean pretending prisons are unnecessary in the world we currently live in. It is an aspiration toward a society with less violence, less desperation, and fewer people entering the criminal justice system. Bill Maher treated that aspiration as though it were a detailed governing proposal. But Hong repeatedly separated her long-term values from what she would actually have the authority and responsibility to do as governor. She also made a strong point about labels. Instead of debating whether every policy can be described as socialist, progressive, moderate, or radical, voters may care more about whether they can afford childcare, access healthcare, send their children to properly funded schools, and receive emergency services wherever they live. The strongest part of Hong's answer was that she did not pretend the current system was working perfectly. She acknowledged the need for law enforcement and incarceration in some cases, while also questioning why communities are expected to rely so heavily on punishment after failing to invest in prevention. Bill Maher may disagree with democratic socialism, but reducing the entire movement to one quote about a hypothetical world without prisons avoids the policies Hong was actually discussing. Ultimately, this was a debate over whether ambitious social goals should automatically be dismissed as dangerous or whether they can guide practical reforms without being implemented literally overnight. And if you enjoy sharp, fact-based breakdowns of the biggest political clashes, please subscribe to Political Crossfire and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a new video. What do you think? Who made the stronger argument? Share your opinion below and subscribe to Political Crossfire.